So thank you for coming on the show. You're going to have to pronounce your name for me, though, so I don't butcher it more than once.
My sister gets an entire class of sixth graders to say it. I'm not a Wongs. You're a Wongs. Kaiyoorawongs.
I'm dying.
I'm like, how can you I can't get one adult. How do you get your entire classrooms of six classes of sixth graders to say it? I came to visit her and they all chanted, "Hi, Miss Kaiyoorawongs." And it was like perfect. And I was like, oh my God, I can't get one adult. What trick do you have to offer me? And she's like, I'm not a Wongs, you're a Wongs, Kaiyoorawongs. So
I feel like there's like a whole video thing here. Forget hooked on phonics. Get a sixth grade teacher to teach you how to say names. This is fantastic.
Yep.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I love the lip color and the necklace. You are very well accessorized, so nicely done, friend. So what do you do in and around real estate? What's the little story about Catalina? Tell people who you are.
So I don't do anything around we work with real estate professionals, as well as lenders mostly, to basically, anytime someone comes in with student loan debt is affecting about 70% of first-time buyers. And so what we do is we're turning student loan payments into mortgage payments by reducing student loan debt and helping increase affordability for a home. So we work with consumers, but we get lots of referrals from lenders, real estate professionals. And what I really want to do is change access for my generation, which I'm part of the millennial generation, and we have so much student loan debt. So if we follow the advice, which is to pay down your student loans before you buy, then the national payoff is 43. We will just delay our ability to buy a house. And it doesn't make any sense that the lending in the real estate market doesn't understand there's so much money to help people reduce their student loan payments and actually be able to afford a house. There's so much money out there. Why aren't we systematically giving access and helping people get this information? And we do it in a software automated way to help with, like, we have tools and then we have humans behind those tools to help advise, so that literally we're not getting someone all the way to the appraisal process and then their financing isn't accepted. It's like, well, we should have helped them ahead of getting them to pay for an appraisal and inspection, all this stuff. You've wasted all the lender time, the real estate agent's time. It's like, how does that make any sense? Why aren't we helping them at the front end, addressing this debt burden so they don't get demoralized by this process and throw their hands up and say, I guess I need to wait till I'm 40.
You're cracking me up because after I ask you what do you do in and around real estate? Nothing. Boom, I help people buy houses. That was kind of hilarious and almost so we might call this the whiplash financial advice. Because
well, I mean, I guess what I mean is from like a conventional realtor perspective, I am basically here to help you be more effective, right? If you're a realtor or lender, my job is to help you become more effective and close more deals because you are helping meet our mission, which is to help more millennials be able to access homeownership, right?
Well, but the good realtors and the good lenders, we don't think about people as deals. We say, how do we help our neighbors make great decisions? Because the more you look at your opportunities to help somebody as neighbors and less as deals, the better off we are. And that's what makes us amazing. And it's also why your tools are so great, because a lot of the listeners and viewers of my podcast aren't actually in real estate. They just have this voyeuristic idea of what's happening over there. And there's a true demographic and statistical fact that a lot of millennials, well, they've delayed household formation for a lot of reasons, but they are delaying property purchases because of, I don't know what to do with this debt. And I think it's an atrophy that comes from staring at it. So what would you say to that? Because I've met a lot of buyers with this. I just can't, because I have this giant iceberg of student debt. They just don't even investigate their options. They're not even thinking about it as something to work with. So how do you start that conversation with your peers?
So first and foremost, I mean, the student loan policy stuff is super complex.
On purpose, say that out loud.
Yeah. It's super complex. So without getting into any technicalities, and this is why getting a student loan advisor is so important, because we can answer the questions your CPA can't answer, your CFP, certified financial planner, can't answer, sometimes lenders can't even answer. And then your student loan servicer does not understand DTI at all.
And then please don't call your realtor. We can barely do percentage math. That's why we refer you to professionals. And your realtor should always be the source of the source. I'm just saying. So carry on.
Yeah. So what I'm attempting to say is, what do I do when I talk to my generation? Number one, the only understanding of what to do with your student loans is a concept of refinancing them. And it's a myth that refinancing actually, number one, will help you close on a house. Number two, it's a myth that refinancing is your best option. And I could tell you why. Well, number one, first of all, the majority of Americans do not qualify to refinance their student loans because they want the creme de la creme under 2% default rate. They want the doctor, the lawyer. They don't want the teacher, the social worker, unless your parents have money and will co-sign and put their house up for collateral or something. So number one, most regular Americans do not qualify for refinance. Number two, look, if you refinance a boatload of student loans on your debt to income, they're calculating the fully amortized payment, right, towards your DTI. And that makes people's DTIs too high to close on a house. So they have to actually pay down the debt in order to close. Whereas there are government programs where you could lower your payment, and it's purely based on a formula that has to do with your income, number of dependents, various other factors, your employer type, that we help people understand, that you could actually lower your payments all the way down to zero, even for some families. And then your student loan impact on your debt to income is significantly lowered. And then we help the consumer understand what are the best type of even mortgage loans with their current student loan standing. We help enroll all their paperwork and then help them understand what is the best course of action. You need to look for a lender that can help you qualify for X and not Y, right? Even though technically student loan advisors aren't mortgage advisors, but we help them get that full understanding. So my advice is, really understand if you refinance your student loans, because it's the only thing people are being hammered with. If they Google student loans, there are refinance ads everywhere, because that's how people make money. That's how blogs make money. They privatize these student loans, but it actually can hurt you as a individual. And you need to understand, what are the repercussions to refinancing, right? You might not be able to get a home for 5 years. You lose permanent disability discharge. There's all kinds of risk you put yourself into. So I always like to say, fully understand what you're signing up for and the future impacts, and don't just look at interest rates, because interest rates don't matter if you don't even have to. Some people don't even pay off the full balance of what they borrowed. So their interest rate is zero effectively, right? So it's like, really understand what you're signing up for and get advice from someone that actually understands all the options, rather than advice from someone who might make money selling you a refinance loan. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And it's why, listeners and viewers, you should always ask the professionals in your life, whether they are financial advisors, loan officers, realtors, anybody, ask them how they are paid, because they will have to answer this question. And too often, and Catalina's seen this just as I have, people don't ask the question, and so they don't understand they're being sold a product which pays the salesperson. And there's nothing wrong with salespeople being paid, but there are things wrong with it when you, the end user, don't understand who's getting paid and why and for what, so that you can make good educated decisions. Because you can make really smart decisions, and it is possible to buy houses when you have student debt that you're working your way through. So Catalina, if somebody's listening to this and they've got a kid with student debt, because let's just say some of our listeners are my age and they have kids that have finished school, have debt, or they're young people that are young realtors who want to buy, they're not ready yet because they have student debt. What are the first two things every person out there with the iceberg of student debt, what should they do to figure out their best opportunities?
So first and foremost, it's a myth that people in their 50s don't have debt. It's over 5 million Americans, because they're taking out debt now for their children. It's called Parent Plus loans. So number one, yes. Well, I don't know if it's stupid, because we try not to like our value judgment on people's decisions, right? Because
Oh
you
no,
never
I
know.
judge people all the time. That's not
I'm just saying we never know people's circumstance. So I don't lead with that. But what I'm saying is it's possible if you do have Parent Plus loans to reduce them, number one. So I just want to address that as first and foremost, if you don't know that, right?
Catalina's nicer than I am, friends. That's I'll just tell you, community college, if you are a Zoomer who's thinking about college, don't turn your nose up at community college because you could avoid half of the iceberg she and I are talking about if y'all would keep your expenses down to start with. But anyway, back to
right. Well, yes, I do think understanding what you're getting yourself into and making an educated guess in the future is very important. I'm not denying that by any means. So
you're nicer about it than I am. That's okay.
Yeah. So ask me the question again. What advice would you have? Okay, so if you're a student,
whether you are the student with the debt or the parent with the Parent Plus, and so they're both carrying, and I call them icebergs because they're hard to get around. They don't move. They're just sitting there. They block your way. What are the top things everybody should ask about that giant thing right there?
Okay, so first and foremost, there are quite a few people that owe under national average of debt, which might not be that big. But here's the thing. A lot of individuals have taken on debt and don't have degrees. So if you're in any kind of bad standing, and I say that with air quotes, as in like you have defaulted, you have gotten yourself in some trouble because you didn't fully understand the process or the program, when to pay, whatever. There's all these rules around it. We can definitely help you get into good standing, because if you're in bad standing, it's senior debt to all types of debts. You can never access buying a home if you don't fix that problem, number one. So understand that if you're like, oh, we'll just come, collectors will just come after me, nothing's going to happen. It's untrue. They will garnish your wages. They will garnish your Social Security. They will add all these fees. They add 17.892% fees if you default. So there's all these terrible things. So do not put it off. So if you're feeling like anxious and like keep on putting it off because you don't want to deal with it, just know
deal with it.
That you have to deal with it because it will never go away. And we can help you.
There are solutions.
Yes, we can help you. Right. So that's number one. So just know that we always, and our loan advisors always lead with empathy, knowing that it's a huge stressor, right? And we want to help you get out of it. And we don't judge whatever decision you have made around your debt, and we can help you get through it. So that's number one. And we will handhold the whole process, like assist you with paperwork, assist you with dealing with your collectors, whatever. Number two is if you are part of the population that has that mountain boat of debt and you still have good credit, but you're like, oh my God, I feel strangled by this, because 80% of student loan holders, by the way, are renters. So it really is strangling it's the number one barrier for those under 45, right? Just know that before you make an action to do something with your student loans, you really need to understand if it will help you or hurt you if your goal is to buy a home. So the best thing I would recommend is, you could even get started on our website, right? We give completely free preliminary analysis at myloansense.com, but understand, are there better options with what to do? And don't just assume that refinance is the answer. That's my first thing I want to say. If you're a parent, like this is what I see with Parent Plus loans. Oftentimes the mother takes out the loan and not the father for their children. And if you happen to divorce down the line, you are going to be stuck with that debt and not the other spouse. And I see women do this all the time. So they worked fewer years, make less money, and now they're stuck with their child's debt, and it can be crippling. So do not, if you're a woman, my advice to you is, because I've seen it over and over, do not assume you should take on the debt. That makes no sense, because you own it and you cannot give it to anybody else. You can't divorce and say you take half of it. You can't say your child take it. No, it is going to be reflective on your credit report. So fully know what you're signing up for and understand it. Because in some circumstances, if you're a parent, I see people, regardless, let's say they stay married, like the spouse, one of them will work at a nonprofit hospital where they could completely get the debt forgiven. And then the homemaker, and this is stereotypical, but I see this too. The mom will stay at home, take on the debt. She can't get it forgiven the way the spouse could have. He should have taken out the debt in his name, but because they didn't get any advice, they are doing things that actually hurt them as a household financially. So just before you take out debt for your children, like understand what are the options, right? What are the options? What are you doing? And have some plan, So I would say that first and foremost, if you're a parent, if that's not your concern, that's my main advice. But either way, if you have a child you want to advise, also get them help, get them proper advice. But because what you don't want them to do is mismanage it, think, oh, I'm going to refinance at 4% instead of holding 7% or whatever. It's a good decision. And just let them know that may not be the best decision, especially if you want to buy a house and depending on how much debt you have and who you work for and many other factors, right? So just know that. And I know I went on and on for a while.
But what it boils down to is get your pride out of the way, because you and I both know a lot of the reasons we don't get these questions early enough is pride. People say, well, I'm not going to ask questions because I should know things about it. And so they don't know what they don't know, and they don't ask because they don't know. And what we're both telling you is ask questions. I won't have all the answers, but I've got people like Catalina. Catalina won't have all the answers. She'll know who to go to as well, because we want to help you create a solution to your future. And if you're a millennial or a Zoomer who's listening to this, if we're going to speak in terms of demographic groups, you can't give up on the idea of home ownership, because we're recording this in April of 2021 when the markets are pretty insanely out of whack in favor of sellers. So as a buyer, it's hard for you to get into the market anyway, but it's not impossible. And we know that when rents are high and interest rates are low, there's lots of reasons to consider home ownership, especially if you're in a city and an area, a job that you think you could stay put for 10, 15, 20 years. There's so many reasons to figure out how to reprioritize, but it starts with you asking questions. And just as Catalina said, I mean, I joke about being judgy, but you really do need to get past the idea that somebody might judge you, because truly, we're not going to judge you like that. We're going to help you find solutions, because I believe in home ownership. And Catalina believes in home ownership and believes in the opportunity that you can create if you get out of your own way. So don't assume that because somebody said student debt is bad, that you can't get past it. And frankly, the same thing with medical debt. If you find somebody who's got great knowledge, they're going to help you find some solutions and ideas. So Catalina, in advising people who are trying to figure out how to deal with the iceberg, what are some of the solvable scenarios that you've seen, that you watched somebody take the advice and make their way through? Was there a giant one that was just heartwarming and a yes?
So we get average. Okay. So we get average increase home affordability by $98,000.
That's
so it's money. Not like, one-off circumstances. I love to educate, because I love to get people in a position where they haven't made a mistake where they can't get increased affordability. We're literally turning student loan payments into mortgage payments dollar for dollar, right? So a big story I always like to tell is two teachers came to us, and one went back to get his PhD because he wanted to rise up into the ranks of like administration. He took out $174,000 of student loan debt, and his partner had, like $70,000. So between them, they had over $200,000. But they're really not. They're teachers. They're making higher than the average teacher.
But still.
But they live in an area that is, the prices are quite high. So the teacher with the $176,000 were able to reduce his payment based on his actual income and their standing. And we were able to take what is over a $2,000 payment down to about $400. And that completely changed their access to their DTI, their debt to income change, which translated into significantly increased affordability. So that was able to help them build. So basically, if you're in those kind of situations, you really need to, you can't just turn around tomorrow and say, I'm going to start home shopping. Like, no, 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 no. You need to get yourself onto a home buying preparation pathway
Yes.
and educate yourself on what it is you need to be doing. And if student debt is your primary concern, although LoanSense does address other forms of debt and answer key questions of, hey, I have $400 extra a month to prepare to buy a house. These are all the debts I have. What should I prioritize? How much? We help you build a plan. We do not consolidate debt. We don't touch money flows. We are completely advisory, and we want you to win. We are your cheerleaders. You get assigned a personal advisor who will help you over 3 to 4 months achieve your goals and work side by side with you to get you there. We're 100% advisory, and we want to see you win. So my advice is to, get yourself on a pathway to prep and not just expect, turn around, start on Zillow, and then think you're going to find a realtor and then you're going to close like in 2 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever you think, because that is not going to happen if you have significant amount of debt or you have any student loan debt for that matter. It's best to figure out what your options are, whether you have a little debt, a lot of debt. Just educate yourself and understand the process before you go diving in and expecting things. Like I'll have some people that are like, well, my lease is up in 2 months. I got to close on a house. And it's like, some people can do it. Other people, it's like, I think you might need to renew your lease. you know? Or you might be wanting to look for a new apartment because we cannot get you there in 2 months, So
that's
just
the reality of it. We have to move past the instant gratification impulses of our society and realize that if you just plan for even a few months, you can change everything in the outcome. You'll get closer to what you were dreaming of with a better financial outlook. And I do have to mention to those of y'all that are viewers or listeners who are allergic to debt, period, and you kind of hate this whole talk of debt, we're in a very expensive world. And in some parts of the country, wages are nowhere close to what it costs to live there. Now, if you live in the middle, you're probably in a lower cost of living area. But if you take the Bay Area, California, or anywhere in New York, the costs are really high. So consider that some debt makes more sense over time than other debt. Student debt can be good if you've bought yourself a degree that's got upward mobility. House debt can be good because you're building equity and you're going to have the mortgage interest deduction. So there's ways to think about debt that are positive, because we're not talking about credit card debt, which just digs you into a deeper and deeper hole. But you've got to be smart. You've got to be proactive in your planning, and you've got to ask great questions. So Catalina, give us one more question you wish everybody asked before they signed their student loan paperwork. What do you wish they knew before they got into this paper?
They need to know what their payments are going to be when they get kicked into repayment. And they need to think about how much money am I going to earn and how much percentage of my post-tax income will I be paying to student debt? And is that something I want to live with? So that's what I would say. If you're a parent, you have to think about that. Or a parent giving advice to young people who are making decisions, like you need to help them think through that. And lastly, what I wanted to say to your comment about good and bad debt, I want to really briefly share my story, which is in my 20s. I never thought, I was like in my 20s, I like to travel. I work for this nonprofit. I didn't make a lot of money, but I wanted to save everything and travel. And my mom's like, look, why are you renting $1,000 apartment downtown? By the way, Sarasota, Florida, which is like this beautiful beach community. Why are you renting an expensive apartment downtown when you could just drive 7 minutes out and buy a 3-bedroom house for like way less than what you're spending on your monthly apartment rent? And I was like, I don't want to own. I don't want the responsibility. I want to travel. I want to blah, 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 blah. I told my mom. And my mom met a realtor, and my mom's like, come and look at this short. So this house is up for short sale. Like they need to get rid of it quick. Come and take a look. So she brought me to this house, and it was like discounted clearly because it was like, how is this house? So I went in there and I looked around. I'm like, okay, good. How do we close? And that was my experience of buying my first home. But then I Airbnb 2 of the bedrooms. I saved for another down payment. Then I started turning into a remodeler. I got another house. I spent high and low days looking on another in St. Petersburg, where I'm actually right now visiting for the moment. But I literally found a house that I could convert to 2 units. I remodeled it. And I just kept on doing that process a few times in my 20s. And now, and by the way, I still have student loan debt. So it's not that you have to purge yourself of debt, but you could turn what you have into assets to make you money. And that has given me the financial freedom in my mid-30s now to be able to say, after going to get my MBA, I don't want to become a strategy consultant and make 6 figures. Because guess what? I want to live my purpose, which is to help people like me. And I have the financial freedom to do that despite having student debt because I have assets that are generating me money. So I tell that story because I want to show my generation it is possible. It might not be possible this second, but you got to, like, I had my mother. If you don't have a mother doing that for you, I will be your mother. Call me up. You know what I mean? I can help you figure it out because that's what I want to do. I want to figure out what free money in the world exists so that you can use it to close yourself, like close and start planning, right? So I did that.
Just your mom in our life. Your mom should totally be available for consulting as a consulting mom. No, baby, I found you a house. Come here, see this, buy this. And I got to mention to y'all, when Catalina talks about renting rooms, you hear this term if you're hanging out on Clubhouse or hanging out online, the term house hacking. And we used to call this, rent a room, but now we call it house hacking, where if you have a 3-bedroom, you rent 2 of the rooms, you'll find that by renting space, first of all, you're providing housing to somebody who either can't afford huge market rents or can't afford their own house or isn't ready because they've got contract work or some such. You're also going to wind up having your mortgage paid. And so you're going to be really accelerating your future. It's huge.
You live for free. Yeah, absolutely. And like I say, no company, good company in the world has 0 debt. It's about how you use that debt to leverage it to help you win. So you're basically winning off of bank money.
Do you know what's funny when you say that? It just made my brain jump into something. When we look at the numbers of a company, if they're sitting on a lot of cash, we get suspicious. We're like, what are they planning? But if they've leveraged themselves into smart capital positions with leveraged debt, they're like, oh, they're growing, they're doing X, Y, and Z. It's fascinating. You just made that connection.
Well, yeah, I think there's a lot of fear of debt, but like you shouldn't fear debt if it can give you money. Number one,
questions.
Yeah, it gives you money because this is how the analysis I always like to give student loan borrowers. How much rent are you going to pay from now until when you think you can afford 10 years from now? How much rent are you paying? Okay. And then how much property value gain will you lose out on, and calculate it? Are you like, they're like, but I don't want to, I want to live on ramen noodles for the next blah, 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 blah time. And I'm like, okay, how much rent are you paying? How much equity are you losing out on average? I'll tell you year over year, how much equity's gone up. So do that analysis. How much money are you losing out on? So it's not about, it's like intelligently paying off your debt. And I'm not a Dave Ramsey fan for that reason, because he's like, oh, you have to go off and pay off your debt. And I'm like, if that is the motto, millennials will never own a home, and 83% of your assets at retirement come from the value in your home.
That is
the more you defer that, it just doesn't make any sense to me. It's like, why are you
agree with paying off your personal credit cards? Those interest rates are out of control, but you're going to have to own a house. And a millennial is not going to have cash to pay for a house. It's just not going to happen. You have to leverage into it, and you can do it wisely if you ask great questions and you have great advisors.
Right. And it's not like you have to get a house that's at the highest end of your affordability, right? You could, and also like a lot of people are moving out of the San Francisco and the Bay Areas, and you could go back and live in your hometown and get a house for 1/10 the price. So it's like, just think strategically about like how to manage your life so that you can live your best life and not be strapped down and constrain, like, don't constrain yourself before you know there are constraints, right?
There
So
you go. I like that. That should be your little quote on Instagram. It'll look great. Hey, so Catalina, if somebody wants to reach out to you and find out how they can tap into your wealth of knowledge and the advisory group that you have that can help people strategize, how do they find you and your company?
yeah. So, well, thank you for asking, first and foremost.
I know they're wishing I'd asked earlier, but I made them wait until now.
I know. Yes. Yes. So find us at myloansense.com. We have an affordability tool that you could literally enter a few pieces of information and understand how much increased affordability you can get. Definitely play with that. Then you can sign up. You get a free analysis, right? So myloansense.com. We have everything from, oh, I just want to learn a little more and just get our like digital coaching product, or like I'm ready to dive full in, get an advisor, build a plan. So we have two models. And lastly, I am really trying to work on building my YouTube channel, and I post lots of content. I'm going to be posting weekly, lots of content there because why not, right? People like answers. Instead of keep on repeating myself, I can make it available in video format. So on YouTube, if you just search for us, LoanSense or Kat Kai, you should be able to find me and subscribe. And every time we have a video, you will be receiving it. So,
or just click on the links in the show notes, because I know y'all are sitting there trying to think about how you're going to spell her name, and what? It's all right. Everything's in the show notes for this episode, so you can click subscribe and follow. And frankly, you can get good information in between those videos trying to figure out how to put together that IKEA furniture. But the last piece of financial advice that we're going to give you is please stop buying IKEA furniture when you can go to yard sales and get actual wooden furniture that was built really well for almost nothing. You can paint it if you want to, but I don't know why we insist on buying pressed wood furniture when there's really good stuff out there.
Yeah, the REFTR. You could support Habitat for Humanity. There's so much stuff.
I didn't ask her to do that. That was not a setup, friends. Love the REFTR. I'm the president of my local Habitat board.
Okay. So you like that I did that. I love it. That's where, like, I furnish Airbnbs. I get so much good stuff from there. So yes, REFTR. I'm helping you plug it. They did not pay me anything. I'm not,
I'm doing an Airbnb, and my mother was all concerned because she's doing this project with me, and she's like, it's going to cost us $10,000 to furnish it. I said, Mama, it is not. We are going to the REFTR. We're going to go to the Battered Women's Shelter, has a little store. I'm like, we could totally furnish this with really good stuff that nobody wants. It'd be fine. Look cute.
Yeah. And finally, actually, one final thing, Leah, if you don't mind me mentioning, I just want to state, if you are a realtor or a lender, or you are a professional in the mortgage process, you're a real estate professional, we can also help you get access to our tools on your website and in your network, and you can provide this information to your audience. So contact us at, by coming to our website. We also have a partnership link, or at sales@myloansense.com. And we can help you, increase your capacity and awareness for your services by helping a key issue of our generation. So I just wanted to plug that as well.
So, which means y'all be able to go to my website pretty soon, because I'm going to get the tools and plug them in, and then y'all can have access to it right there. Catalina, thank you for coming on the show. And I love your passion for this. I love your passion for helping other people make better decisions. And then you get to travel too. It's a win for everybody. So I'm very grateful for your passion and your knowledge and your sharing. And I'm excited for all of my followers and listeners to follow up with you and find out how they can be a part of the solution too.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate being here.
All right, friends, if you learned something, you want to subscribe. If you learned two things, hit the like and love buttons and go ahead and give me some stars. And I like all the stars. If you like this show, you're going to want to come back for more. You're going to want to follow up with Catalina, and you're going to want to see me next time.